Hello, welcome to Flower Juice. My name's John McDonald and today we're going to make an arrangement using this really cool vase. Now this I actually found in a second-hand furniture store and I thought this is probably for umbrellas, but this is such a nice vase it could be used for lots of different things. So we're going to make an arrangement really picking up on the colours, the yellows, and I've got some lovely solidago, some sunflowers and just some kind of garden material. And we're going to make a nice arrangement that kind of cascades, kind of slightly crescent shaped. So the first thing I want to do is put some floral foam in a tray. So this foam I've pre-soaked and I just want to tape this into the actual tray. So to soak the foam, you just drop it into a large enough bucket of water. Don't push it under, just let it sink down until it reaches the surface on its own. And that's really very quick. So it's very simple to do. If you push it under the water, there's a real danger that you actually get air bubbles. And the problem with that then is that when you put flowers into the foam, they're not going to be able to access water because of this air bubble. If you do that, a simple way to solve the problem is to use a thick stub wire and just pierce the foam a few times, and that will help solve it. So just to secure this on here, I'm using some Oasis Fix, which is like a putty, and it's just like blue tack. So it's very easy to use for putting Oasis or foam into an area that's maybe an unusual place. Now we could tape this on as well, but to be honest, it's going to be quite secure. What I could have done as well is put some weight into the vase, which is a good idea if you're wanting a little bit more stability, if it is going to be somewhere that would get knocked. So we've got our base, we've got our vase, and material wise, I'm just going to use a mix of things that I quite liked. So this was actually some forsythia that I have in the garden, and this I really like because it's already growing in a way that is hanging. So we can just make use of that, and just because this is an offcut, we don't need to not use it. So you can see straight away we've got a nice line there. And then for the other side, I want to do a similar one. And I'm using a knife for cutting on a slant, and that makes it really easy for putting flowers into foam. The other foliage I'm going to use is, I do have some beautiful canna leaves, and what we can do is we can use them just towards the back to give us a little bit of weight. And also to help start to hide that edge of that container. So you can see this is already hiding that edge. We've got this nice drop, and we've got a little bit of volume as well from these canna leaves. So I also have some zebra grass. Now the zebra grass I love. It's got great movement to it, and it's interesting with that stripe as well. So we're going to help bring that in to help with our drop. Now I don't really want this grass to go like this. So what we can do is we can actually just give it a wee bend. That end is not so good. So just look at your material as you're using it. Now that's gone right through, so we don't want that. This is really the danger when you're doing something that is low hanging, is how do you get that drop? And to be honest, it's all about the depth of foam. I could actually have had the foam a little bit higher at the top. That would give us more of a drop and make it a lot easier. because then we can come right up and our flowers will drop perfectly then. But really this grass is just adding a bit of a line into our design. Now, we can add, really the thing that's going to be the interesting element to add is the sunflowers, because they're big and they're heavy. But I do want to just add a little bit of solidago first. So we'll get a little bit into here. But in a way I'd like to keep this area quite free at the moment, just for being able to see the foam for us adding our flowers, our big stems. But obviously once we put them in, it can be a little bit more difficult for getting access to the foam again for our other flowers. So everything's really a bit of a balancing act, to be honest. So let's look at our sunflowers. This is really our biggest, heaviest one. And I'm just cutting, again, on a slant. What you can do is you can give it a little bit of a flat edge so that when you do put it into foam, it is not going to twist, it's not going to move. And sunflowers love water. They really like having a good source of water. So if you're making this for an event, that's great. But if you're making it more for a gift or for the home, you want to tell your customer, or if you're having it for yourself, you want to keep an eye on the water. They're really going to be thirsty flowers. And I'm going to take one backwards. Now you're probably thinking, that's a bit stupid, but what happens is then with your eye, you get a bit of depth. And if you've got one like this, which is a little bit not perfect, that's perfect for putting a little bit further behind. And the same with this little bud here, we can just put him further to the back. Another good thing as well is from the side here, you can see if we go back, it's giving us physical balance by adding that. If all our material is at the front, it doesn't really look as natural, but also it becomes a little bit physically unbalanced. So it's much more likely to tip forward and have a problem. So I have this lovely sunflower here that's a different colour, which I love. And actually this is fine. This one here is just missing some petals, but we've got a really interesting seed head now that we can put in. And I'm making sure, because these are quite heavy flower, that they are going in quite deeply, quite seriously. We're not wanting them to move around or have a problem. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work some more solidago through the whole thing. I've got a good amount of solidago, so we're going to use it in two ways, really to bring in colour and to bring in volume. And also actually with longer stems, it's bringing in an element of foliage as well. So when I first started arranging flowers, I used to use a lot of foliage because you're scared that the foam's going to show, that it's not going to look full. But actually you start to learn that some flowers have foliage on them, so you don't necessarily need as much foliage as you would think. Now you can see here, once I bring one or two of these solidago into this area, it's really starting to feel much more complete. I do like solidago, and where I live it really grows abundantly just out in nature, and you can actually get honey that is a solidago honey, just like you can get heather honey and mixed flower honey, sunflower honey. There's so many different types of honey, and one of the ones that we can get here is solidago. So I'm actually just using this solidago at the back just to kind of finish off this back area. I think it looks nice just to be finished off in case anyone goes round the back. Depends where it's going to go, I suppose. But I think if you're making something like this for event work, it's actually good to finish things off from all angles, because you never know who's looking from where, if the item will get moved by a member of staff. So it's good just to make sure that the whole thing is complete. Now, this flower here is absolutely beautiful. This is an echinops. And I just think it matches because it's a daisy flower and the sunflowers are a daisy flower. Colour-wise it's different, but that's giving us a contrast, making it a little bit more interesting and exciting. We've already set up that contrast of not just being all yellow by having that different coloured sunflower at the front, this one here. So actually this colour combination is quite interesting. So again, just cutting with the knife, keeping the flowers nice and clean and sharp. With these ones I'm putting them more to the centre area because they're different and they're special. We want to see them. Again, we can make some sit back a little bit as well, so it's not a problem with that. Right, okay, so the next flower I want to use is I've got some beautiful alliums, and again this is going to give us another contrast. So I have to be careful, now we've got all this volume in here, that I don't actually go right through the foam with the stem, because these stems are really quite straight and sharp. When you cut them, it's very easy to just go right through. So I hope you can see that we're building this up. Now you could really make as much or as little of this as you want. So you can limit your materials and have a far simpler look, or you can really keep adding material and make something that is more interesting, or you could study it for a little bit longer. I think that can be quite nice. Now let's have a little look. I also have tiny little bit of this. It's like a cow parsley. So we're going to bring this in again. We've got a bit of texture with our solidago. So we can still keep this quite textured by adding this as well. Great thing with this stem is we're able to break it down into little units. And like with this, I've cut off a few stems here and here, but I can keep the main stem to have a longer piece. And then with that longer piece, I can bring that down to an area that I wouldn't have been able to do just with what we had. And actually, I'm going to take that off. I think I'll shorten this one. Sometimes people say, oh, you're not meant to put flowers in twice. And yes, that's correct. You should be able to judge what you're doing, make a decision, cut your flower, put it in. That's the ideal. But the reality for everyone is that sometimes we want to change things, we want to move things. And as long as you're not doing it with every flower, then it's okay. If you're doing it too much, you're going to weaken the foam, you're going to potentially damage your flowers, and it's not good. But if you have got one and it's a little bit long, just recut it. And if you've got one that's in the wrong place, move it, make a new hole. But try and make your decisions straight away and then decide. So, we've got quite an interesting arrangement here, but I have got one thing that I would like to add that is a little bit different, and that's these poppies. Now, I was just collecting stuff in the garden, and I saw that the poppy had gone over, and then I realised that when you took the crispy dried leaves off, actually the poppy seed heads are just fab. So we're going to put these in, and this again is going to be like what I said, adding something that gives you a little interest, a little element that makes you look twice. So we're looking at this and we're knowing, yes, it's a fresh flower arrangement, but then we look again and we can see, oh, there's some dried poppies in there. So we know that there's been poppies, they've flowered and they're passed, and that gives this an element that it has. It's not just from that moment in time, it actually encapsulates a moment from the past as well because of that dried material. And it's not unnatural because I didn't buy it and put it in just because I'd been to the wholesalers. It actually was in the garden at the same time. So as you can see there, I'm putting like this one back, and that just takes your eye through the actual design. So I've got these kind of foam slippers, kind of sandals sort of thing, and they're squeaking on the floor. Sorry about that. And we can just add a little flower there. So that really is our design. So we've got real impact from our sunflowers, we've got interest in texture from our solidago, and we've got an arrangement that really suits this vase that has waterfall effect, a slightly crescent effect. This would look great on a buffet, would look great in a public area like a hallway, and the colour itself is just going to make people really have a look, and then the detail in it is going to make them have a second look. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have and you've not subscribed, then click here, and we have new videos every week, and we would love to see you for our next design. Take care and see you soon.